Tuesday, June 23, 2020. This is the Legislative and Human Resources Committee of the Board of Commissioners for Kent County. We'll go ahead and call to order. And before we begin, this meeting is being managed and handled through Zoom, which is not reflective of the speed of the meeting, but the method. So I will let Wayman go ahead and give us the introduction of the protocol.
Yes, pursuant to Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-129, the Legislative and Human Resources Committee of the Kent County Board of Commissioners, in order to protect the public health, will conduct this meeting via electronic communications. Any member of the public wishing to listen to the proceedings or provide public comment may do so by using the internet connection or phone number
Bonnie
codes
for $10 and Scott's mulch for $2.
as listed on the agenda on the screen. If there's any disruption in the meeting or use of offensive language or actions, you will be removed or silenced in the meeting. You may submit for opportunity to provide public comment at kentcountymI.gov.
Great, thank you. Just a reminder to all the participants, if you would be so kind as to mute your participation until you're speaking so that we can avoid as much of the feedback that otherwise tends to generate out of that. So let's start with public comment. If anyone from the public is online or wishes to participate through any of these methods identified, please identify yourself. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. We'll give it a couple of minutes, or that's a long time. We'll give it a little time to see. And Pam, you have moderator control, so if anyone identifies themselves, just let me know.
Nothing in the inbox currently. I don't see anything in the chat.
All right. Then let's move to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes from May 26, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Melton moves.
Moved by Commissioner Melton, supported?
Talon, support.
Supported by Commissioner Talon. Any discussion? If not, I believe we are required to take all votes by roll call. Can we do the roll call?
Yep, Commissioner Hennessy.
Yes.
Commissioner Tallman.
I'm here.
Commissioner Melton.
Yes.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Teal.
Yes.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Yes.
Commissioner Talon.
Yes.
Commissioner Bonk.
Yes.
Chair Stack.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
And I'm here from Commissioner Coleman meant yes, I think. All right, great. Let's move to item number 3. We have a updated report from our federal lobbyist, Potomac Strategic Development. Is Steve Carey giving that report?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Looking to see if he's here. Steve, are you there?
Charlie, to wait on the line?
I'm on the line. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I think Steve was on the line a few minutes ago, and he may be trying to
He's
call in
on.
again.
He's just texted me that he's on, so I don't know if he's having difficulty. I dialed.
Oh, there we go. Somebody just unmuted me, Wayman.
Okay.
So I'm good.
Very good.
No.
Thank you.
So
Good morning,
thank you.
everybody. I'm sorry, I talked over somebody.
No, I was just acknowledging that you are there. This is Commissioner Stack. Thank you for joining us. Didn't mean to keep you mute because the idea is to have you talking. So let's go ahead.
Well, I appreciate it. It's not unusual to want to mute somebody from Washington, D.C., so it comes with the territory. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I want to applaud the reaction of the county officials. I know that you're on a decline on the COVID infections, And I want to report to you, if you haven't heard about it before, that I am getting reports from federal officials about the rollout of your funding effort using COVID crisis funding. I had a couple comments from federal officials saying you folks are doing it right. So kudos to you and congratulations. What I'd like to do is proceed on the latest information and not report on what we've already provided you. I will start with an overview of where we are and then get into the latest. And I'm hoping Charlie is on, because I'd like this to be a collaborative between the two of us, because we're dividing and conquering for you. Just generally, as you know, the House passed its last COVID stimulus bill a couple weeks ago. There has been some reluctance on the Senate side to pass it. I think it's a philosophical decision on two fronts. One is paying for these stimulus packages, and also somewhat of a reluctance to acknowledge that there is, in fact, an infection spreading across the country, when in the initial stages it was limited to just a few states. Now it is more widespread. It's going up in other states in the middle of the country, and so there's a greater sense on the part of some lawmakers to pass a bill on the Senate side. You already know too that there has been an increase in the funding for the state and municipal fund. That's a benefit, obviously, to Kent County. There has been a bit of pushback on the Senate side again. There is a sense that the stimulus dollars that would be going to state and local governments would be filling in some holes on past practices. But again, that's to be continued. We continue to press on the Senate side to acknowledge what was passed on the House side, because I know that you need that funding. So that's just a general overview of where we are on the stimulus package. Something that's been happening on the House side that the Senate could take on are some major transportation and infrastructure bills that are now moving through the House. The T&I, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, under Chairman DeFazio, unveiled what's referred to as the Moving Forward Act, and it's a bill. It's a $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan, and it's expected to be brought to a vote in the next coming weeks. It includes $500 billion for roads and bridges, the improvement of safety in their effort to reduce gridlock and so forth. There are some green initiatives in there too. They hope that it's a path to a zero emission for the transportation sector. It includes $319 billion in highway investments and $105 billion for transit investments. And the $500 billion transportation and infrastructure component is actually called the Invest in America Act. That was passed by the committee last week in a huge markup. It lasted a few days, and they had to go through 177 different amendments. Just to summarize, and we can put this in a more detailed synopsis once it gets closer to the floor, that $100 billion for affordable housing infrastructure, $25 billion for drinking water state revolving fund, $70 billion to transfer the electric grid to accommodate some renewable energy, $100 billion to promote competition in broadband, and then $30 billion to upgrade hospitals to improve capacity and so forth. Those are the activities that have happened since our last report. And Charlie, if I've missed anything, I'd appreciate you weighing in too, and then open it up for questions.
Thanks.
Charlie?
If you can hear me, thanks, Steve. I just wanted to add a few things to what Steve said. And as Steve mentioned, the transportation and transit, highways, bridges portion of that bill passed the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee last week. And the reason they didn't pass everything is because there's multi-jurisdiction here, because you're dealing with the environment, you're dealing with the electric grid, you're dealing with energy, you're dealing with broadband. A lot of that is going to be before the Energy and Commerce Committee, before their chairman, Frank Pallone. So this is kind of a joint effort. They're throwing the whole kitchen sink in there into this Moving Forward Act. Sent you guys a little bit of what they have in there. And this was just unveiled a few days ago, as Steve mentioned. So we want to provide you with more updates as we go along, but just want to make clear that the Moving Forward Act is everything involving infrastructure, schools, housing, environment, and the transportation portion of that, which includes highways, transit, and everything, was passed through the Committee of Jurisdiction last week. So we want to provide you with more detail in newsletters and memos. We've provided, since this whole coronavirus thing started a few months ago, I think we've sent you guys about 17 newsletters, and we'll continue to do that.
Any questions? And did I cover what you all had expected?
Yes, I think that is what we were hoping to hear from you to cover, but there are likely questions. So commissioners, any questions?
Chair Stack?
Yes, Commissioner Melton.
And it's not a question. I just would like to thank you for the newsletters. They have been very lengthy, but really very helpful. I would like to tell you that I have read every single word. I have not, but I've read most of them, and it really does help when people ask questions to give an idea, an overview, not an idea, an overview of factual things that are happening. And right now that's kind of let's just say it's kind of like the wind as to who says what is factual. So it is very nice to have had those. Thank you.
Yes, and I know one was.
It's wonderful to hear. I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to say again what I've said in previous calls. What a pleasure it is to serve my home county, and I'm very proud. So thank you.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Commissioner Ponstein, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair Stack. Charlie and Steve, thanks for your work in DC. It's not really a place I would really want to work on a daily basis, but you quickly gave us that list of what's going to be in the Moving Forward Act, and you listen to it and you think, how can anyone possibly be against any of that? And what you said could be fit on one page, but these bills somehow become 1,200 to 2,000 pages long, and anything and everything that doesn't even belong in the bill ends up in the bill. Any thoughts on what's going to be in there? I mean, it's nice to get highway funding, but when they attach prevailing wage to it, the cost of those projects start to go up. And at the end of the day, you know, we're over 26 trillion in debt now. You know, they'll compliment Kent County on how we're rolling out our spending for the small businesses, but then the way they roll it out on the federal level is just full of waste, and I'll even throw the word corruption out there. Any thoughts on that?
You threw a lot my way. Let me try to untangle a few things, but I will say I understand what you mean. And let me just tell you a little bit of what I've observed since I've left my hometown. What you're referring to, and all of these pages of bills, is known as a Christmas tree. To your point, Commissioner. Something that needs to move. You had just said that there are a lot of dollars that are probably needed to get into the highway system to improve the gridlock, or to eliminate gridlock and so forth. These are all things that everybody wants. New bridges, enhanced roadways, and so forth. So this is a bill that everybody knows is going to likely move. What does that mean? To your point, they're going to add other things. It's a wish list. It turns into a Christmas tree. And that is part of the problem. Now, that said, that is the part of, it's a philosophical issue that they tried to address earlier, I'd say about 10 years ago, where they mandated a rule in the House and Senate that any bill, anything attached to a bill must be germane. Now, they have not always held true to that. There have been a lot of amendments to, say, defense bills that have nothing to do with defense. Again, because most people want a defense bill, but they add on. I don't have a good answer for you, but I know that this will grow. And I also want to say that there's a good chance that the bill won't even pass. I have never seen such animosity on Capitol Hill that I do today. And it is going to be quite easy for the lawmakers to punt and wait until after November to find out who's going to be in control in the House, Senate, and in the White House. So be prepared for that. Now, that said, a lot of people will claim victory if this bill passes because it's a jobs bill. And everybody wants, they don't want the potholes. They want more bridges, etc. And both sides can claim victory if they pass this. I don't know if I answered your question perfectly, but I certainly understand your frustration. Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you did. It was just a comment that I thought people needed to hear on the way things operate. I appreciate both of your efforts on this. I think you're quite aware of where we're at as a county and a state. So I appreciate it. And just so when that Christmas tree is getting the presents out, I'm Stan P, not Stan S.
Okay, you got it, Commissioner. Understood.
Promise I won't unwrap any of your gifts. All right, Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, my ears perked up when you mentioned, I just want to make sure I heard it right, 100 billion with a B for housing in the Moving Forward Act?
Yes, and this is the Democrats' version of the bill.
Right, right.
And Charlie, that is correct. I want to verify with my colleague.
I just want to add, yeah, this is something that just came out. We can give you more details about it, but this is a $1.5 trillion plan, and 100 billion would go into affordable housing infrastructure and programs that address affordable housing.
So what I wanted to ask is whether that sounds like a lot of money to me, but it may not be a lot of money in Washington terms. Do you have any idea of what HUD's annual budget is for those types of activities? I'm just trying to get a sense of how much is that really?
Well, first of all,
affordable housing is a huge issue, and this could go a long way to addressing it.
It could, but it's not just a one-year spending. It would be a rollout over several years. But I can't tell you off the top of my head what HUD's budget is. Happy to report to you on it, though, if you give me a day.
That would be helpful. I just want to have some context for it.
And I'm happy to do that, but keep in mind too that this is still a work in progress, and I wouldn't expect the Senate to have that number.
No.
And this will be a major point of compromise on both sides.
But if it ends up being 50 billion, that's still pretty significant. I'm just curious how it compares to what kind of a dent it could make compared with what HUD's annual investment is. So any context you can provide would be helpful. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other commissioners with a question or comment? I don't see any other with hands up.
No other hands up?
All right. Well, good. Thank you, Steve and Charlie, for your report. Thank you for your work. Number of us share Commissioner Ponstein's angst about living and working in Washington, D.C., but we thank you that you're willing to do that for us and report back. So we look forward to the next report.
Feel free to call me in between. Anybody on this call, feel free to reach to me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Again, it's a pleasure, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to item number 4, which is a update from our.
Yeah, I don't know where Kate is, but I'm still gonna run to.
Who's that? Phil. Becky's on.
Stan, you were muted. You are muted.
I was muted. Am I now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Anyway, so Becky, you're here from Public Affairs Associate for a state legislative update.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. It's nice to see you all again. We anticipate this week in Lansing will be extremely busy. If you recall, the legislature returned in mid to late May. It was a very condensed session. Matter of fact, the House is only voted on Wednesdays typically. This week will be a little bit different because this will be the last week of session. When they adjourn on Thursday, hopefully it's Thursday and not Friday morning, they won't return until July 21st. They do have that week set for legislative action on July 21st. Since my last report, which I indicated the budget status of the state of Michigan is $6.2 billion in deficit, and that's combined for the current year as well as the 2021 budget that begins October 1. There has not been any activity on either budget, and I want to explain why. For the current year budget, of which we're about $3.1 billion in deficit, the administration is waiting in hopes that Congress will pass the HEROES Act that Steve and Charlie just referenced. The window of opportunity, as they also referenced, and the fact that I was quickly reading their report, Congress will go on break for a couple weeks in July and then August. So we have a small window in July of which apparently they want to start negotiating in July. So the administration desperately wants to wait in hopes that some version of the HEROES Act gets passed and it will help the state with this deficit. That will only leave a small window because if they don't get that money, then basically they would be only given August and September to correct the budget. For the current year budget, the process is that the governor submits an executive order, which would be a negative executive order, putting the budget back into compliance. She's waiting as long as possible to do that again for the HEROES Act. For the upcoming budget that begins October 1st, there has been very little activity as well. The legislature is in the process of passing legislation. If you'll recall, in the last budget agreement, they passed legislation that would require the legislature to complete the budget by July 1st. They're rescinding that law because they want to wait. They've added a new revenue estimating conference that is likely to happen at the end of August. They want to get a good picture of where the state revenues are. By that time, the income tax filings that were delayed until July 15th will have come in. And they're hoping to get a more perfect picture, if you will, of where our revenues are. Are we getting better? Our sales tax, income tax will be in. And then from there, they can deal with the upcoming budget. So I think you will see when the legislature returns, they have 1 week in July and then 1 day in August. But because only the House has put that date on the calendar, not the Senate, it's unlikely that either chamber will be in August. So that really just leaves September to do both budgets. So it could be a very, very busy September and perhaps a little bit of October. Because it's an election year for the House, as you can imagine, it's just a very limited time frame we have to work with. The legislature has passed and is sent to the governor a $880 million supplemental specifically dealing with COVID. If you recall, Michigan received $3.1 billion from the CARES Act for the states to use on COVID-related activities. It can't be used to backfill the budget. It can only be used for COVID-related activities. So they did pass that. There's an agreement. There is money in that COVID supplemental for first responders, for direct care providers. There's also money set aside for those entities that still need PPE, priority providers. There's money for the Food Bank Council of Michigan, water utility assistance. At the last minute, there was a rental assistance and eviction diversion money added to this supplemental as well. And then again, as I said, hazard pay for first responders. So that is the first agreement, if you will, on using that CARES Act money from the state. This morning, the House Republicans, and I sent it to Lori if anybody would like to see a copy of it, legislation that will be introduced today on the House dealing with the restart of the education. And that has a price tag of about $880 million for schools to get them prepared for the fall school year and offer as much flexibility as possible. Again, they'll introduce it and then they will leave for the summer. So it'll be sitting out there for more action to be set aside. We do have several policy issues that we're also watching that could affect the county quite a bit. The House last week unanimously passed a property tax bill. It's a penalty and interest-free property tax extension. The bills will allow local governments to borrow up to $1 billion to help with that cash flow. But they give taxpayers until March 1st of 2021 to pay their summer tax assessment without any penalty or additional interest fee. And it's my understanding that not only does it delay till March 1st, but then a resident or a business, I believe, could also then extend it even further for up to 3 months, according to the treasurer. We're concerned that $1 billion might not be enough to handle this cash flow. So we're continuing to work with Representative Lauer and his team to see if we can make some changes, but we're following this bill pretty closely and hoping that it does not impact Kent County in a negative way. The House also introduced legislation, a package of bills rewriting the solid waste management package. It's House Bill 5212 through 5817. And this legislation makes significant changes to how counties handle solid waste. Their goal is to increase recycling to 45%, increase curbside recycling statewide, and create new recycling markets by increasing permitting fees. A big concern is a provision that will require counties to replace their solid waste management plan with material management plans. They do provide funding for this effort, but we still have several changes that we need. I've been working with MAC and DAR. Kent County is in a unique place because we have a waste to energy facility, we have a landfill, and we have a recycling plant. So we're in a good position to be able to speak to this package. They've had 2 or 3 hearings. I think there's a hearing yet this week. We'll continue to make some comments and recommendations and amendments to it to get it in a place that we can find acceptable. But I wanted to bring that to your attention that that's an issue that we're working on. There's also a piece of legislation, a package that's been moving through the House and now is in the Senate dealing with expungement. The Senate Judiciary has held numerous hearings and they'll continue, which allow the expungement of criminal records. There's quite a large number of I guess, items that are not qualified. But the idea that the House and the Senate is to get people gainfully employed. And when you have to put on your record that you have been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor, sometimes that automatically disqualifies you from employment. So so the legislature would like to offer an expungement after 10 years. We also have some concerns with this legislation. There's a notification process that we have concerns with about how locals are notified. We still need to work through that process. And so we're continuing to work through Senator Lucido and the committee to see if we can make some changes that we find workable in that process as well. Late last week, the governor also extended the executive order allowing public bodies to meet remotely, such as what we're doing today, and that extends through July 31st. And we don't know if she'll plan on extending it further, but we do have at least the month of July in which we are able to work remotely. So those are the issues that we are working on closely. We will consider to send you updates as we get additional information. There's quite a bit of work to be done on each one of these packages, and we're hopeful that they can be done and put in a place where the county finds acceptable before final passage. I would be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners have.
All right, thank you, Becky. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Melton.
Commissioner Melton?
Thank you, Chair Steck. Thanks, Becky. I just always, you go a little fast for my hearing ability, but I always learn so much. I so appreciate it. I do have a question though. It really caught my attention when you talked about the expungement of the persons who have been incarcerated. Is there is there like a scale, or would this be for anyone who in 10 years has not gone back to using whatever poor choices they used at one time?
No, first I want to apologize for talking so fast. It's something that I am working on in 2020. So obviously I'm not doing a very good job.
Becky,
yes.
it's fine. I always learn. I have to just pay really close attention. That's good.
So the expungement package does have a complete comprehensive list of felonies that are not included, that are excluded. I'd be happy to send that to you. So it's not just anyone that has been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor. There are a lot of exceptions and disqualifiers. Any assault is not included, but I'd be happy to send that to you for your review. But they're being very careful that some crimes are just not something you can set aside.
Sure. Oh, no, I understand that. No, I think it's because we don't need to go into that. I think it's a very, very, very fine idea, and why we're at 2020 and year 2020 and are just now discovering that, you know what, sometimes you just make a poor choice when you're younger or older or whatever, and it gets you in trouble. But it shouldn't have to follow you for the whole rest of your life if you've done what you're supposed to do. So thank you. I really applaud that is finally coming to light and to fruition. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Melton. Commissioner Bonk.
Yes, thank you, Chair Steck. Becky, I'm really happy to see that solid waste legislation is moving forward. As a former chair, it's been a real headache with solid waste in that whole area of the waste energy plant and other issues that we wanted to do, and the downturn of recycling revenues. And I think it's a real positive that finally somebody is doing something on that front. And I hope that the waste energy is not kicked to the curb because it's yesterday's agreed. I'd like to see that move forward as well as we do our other programs that we're working out at South Kent Landfill. So I hope waste energy is not forgotten.
Okay, I don't know if there was a response, Becky. I didn't hear a question, but if you had anything you wanted to respond to that? No.
Thank you, Commissioner Vonk. I will continue to work with Darboss and Wayman and Lori to make sure that as that package moves, it's in a position that the county finds acceptable and that we're not harming our waste energy facility in any way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Becky. I hope everything's okay with you today.
It is, thank you.
You went through a lot, and I could speak to a lot, but I guess the one point that I want to make is that here we have a legislature that's been out of session for most of the year so far. Finally, we get a situation where it's a little safer for them to meet, and then they feel that it's appropriate to take their much needed vacation breaks and schedule a week and a day to get things done. Meanwhile, they're not doing anything. And having the luxury to say that I served in public office in the 80s, I always found when we budgeted at the local level, the sooner we made the cuts, the easier it was. Mm-hmm. And if you cut too much, it was much easier to add things back. But these folks are just kicking the can down the road. I don't think anything has really changed with the projections of the finances of the state. And they're going to, meanwhile, make cuts then. And the people that were expecting the money or didn't get an answer have got to make a decision or have already spent the money. I mean, can you help me out and maybe it's just me, but what is their train of thought in the legislature on this is the most prudent way when they somehow are putting all their cards in one deck saying that the feds are going to bail us out? Because I don't see that happening.
Well, I think those of us that deal heavily with the state budget are a little unnerved about the process. I can certainly understand wanting to wait and hope that the federal government will help with some funding. I totally appreciate that. The Senate Majority Leader agrees with you. He would rather make those difficult cuts now in preparation for what's going to be even more difficult in the budget that begins October 1. The problem, we're sitting here coming upon July, so now we're down to 3 months of which you can cut $3 billion. And you're exactly right. You can't necessarily ask for money back, especially it's already been spent. They don't want to cut education. There's only, I believe, one or two revenue sharing payments left in this fiscal year. They don't want to cut revenue sharing. There are very few places they could go at this point to cut $3 billion. And it's likely that they can't do that. They actually couldn't do that. So they would, but this is up to the governor. The process for fixing the current year budget is up to the governor initializing an executive order. She does not want to do that. She really wants to wait and see if they either provide more funding or flexibility on the current $3.1 billion that the state has already obtained through the CARES Act. If they change the language to allow them to use some of that money to backfill the budget, then that gives some relief as well. So you're right, this is a dicey situation, but it is the policy that the governor's office wants to move forward with at this point. So the legislature really, their hands are tied at this moment. They could try to, I guess, pass a negative supplemental, but this isn't the administration does not want to do that this time. So I think you will see hearings throughout the summer on the budget because it's going to be difficult for them to come back in September and just finish their work. I know they did quite a bit in February and early March, but they're probably going to have some hearings over the summer in order to get them in the right place for quite a bit of budget activity in September and October.
So yeah, thank you for the report. I appreciate your passion in representing Kent County. Hopefully I'm not right. I don't need to be right all the time. Hopefully I'm wrong and there's going to be plenty of money and everything's going to be fine.
I hope so too.
All right, anyone else? Don't see any other hands up. Well, there's some thinking. So I have a question then, Becky. A number of us have been watching a piece of legislation that's in the Ways and Means in the House. I think you're familiar with it. I call it the Behavioral Health Crisis Response legislation from Representative Whitford. Can you, I know that there's an awful lot that can be said about that, but can you just comment briefly on what's the status of that and where that's going?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I should have mentioned that in my report. I apologize. Representative Whitford does have her crisis intervention legislation. It unanimously moved through the House Health Policy Committee. At the end of the committee, an amendment was added that is very problematic to CMH's local governments. It is now in the House Ways and Means Committee. Representative Iden told me yesterday he does plan to move it out of committee this week. If he moves it out of committee this week as his plan, then it will move off the House floor. The House is planning to move all legislation that's sitting on the floor off their agenda. So it's likely to move over to the Senate. I talked with Representative Whiteford late yesterday afternoon through working through Alan Bolter with the Community Mental Health Association. He has proposed an amendment that would require that hospitals have a working agreement with local, with CMH facilities, with Network 180. You just can't bill them for anything that they want to. There has to be a pre-arranged relationship. We're working on an amendment. I believe the Hospital Association is looking at it and it's under consideration. So I think I'm hopeful we see some movement on that amendment. There's a couple other changes that we need, but I think most important is that financial piece, because that could devastate devastate entities if they can't have any say in what is billed to them, if they just receive bills. So we're working on that. I'm hopeful that that is changed either in committee or on the House floor. Most likely it would need to be done as committee, but we are working on that.
Good. Thank you for that. I know that you know how critical that is to some of the efforts that we have going here in this county and I think elsewhere. And hopefully the amendment process doesn't leave us worse off than when we started.
Exactly.
All right. Any other questions for Becky? If not, thank you again for your report and all your work. We look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, let's move to item number 5. We have a performance measurements review, and Hillary Arthur is here to present. I think we've allowed 10 minutes for your presentation and then some time for questions after that. Those of us that have gone through that note that there's a little bit different format in our reporting process and the measurement process. So hopefully everybody got that. I think it looks like a good structure. But anyway, Hillary, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I think that MB or Natasha is going to allow me to share my screen with you to show a PowerPoint. Just see if we can get that going.
Go ahead, Hillary. You should be all set.
All right. One moment. Can you see my screen now?
No.
No. All right. Just a second. See if I can leave that. Natasha, do you have the PowerPoint up?
I can pull it up.
All right. Why don't we show it from your end?
Okay.
And kill the screen share and we'll just take it from there. So while Natasha's getting that ready, I know we have kind of limited time today as always, so I want to be efficient and be respectful of everyone's time. And so I'll just start by passing on and sending you greetings from both of our judges. They're dealing with their docket right now, but Judge O'Hara and Judge Smolensky send their greeting along with all of our team. Our Deputy Court Administrator, Matt Mapes, is able to join us today, and thank you, Matt, for being here as well. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We always start with what is our court, and you can go ahead and read that for the interest of time. And so we are a trial court, and a very busy one at that. And the next slide is our jurisdiction. And you can see that we're all of Kent County except for 5 cities, so a big geographic area. And on the next slide, we show that what we always start with and our key anchor is that people are our greatest resource. And so without people, without our team, we are nothing, and we really could get nothing done. So this is from 2019, from late 2019. It seems like a long time ago now. No one's wearing masks, and we're all exceedingly close together, so very different from today. The next slide kind of goes through and should be familiar to you from last month with the administration's performance measures review with you. Sort of a roadmap of today. And what I'm going to do today is what we always do, which is a look back at last year, talking about steps forward into the future. And then I added on our pandemic response to the end. So we're absolutely going to fly through this first part. As the chair mentioned, you have the written documentation, and I'd be happy to take a deeper dive into that offline or during the questions. So the next slide is about the commission and the board priorities that were set last year. And we always go back to those 5 priorities. That's our starting point, and our court has also aligned ourselves with that. The next slide is our mission. So hand in hand with the priorities, we go back always to our mission. It's lengthy, there are a lot of words, but the key words are in blue, which is committed to the prompt, courteous, and fair dispensation of justice. Going on to the next slide, our strategic goals then branch out from the mission. So we mindfully focus on mission and service. We nurture our team always. We honor diversity. We continuously train and we foster talent. We promote innovation and we welcome ideas always from our staff and from each other. We enrich internal communications within the court. We have a strong focus on collaboration, both with our partner courts within Kent County funding and without, and also with departments throughout the county. We also are good stewards. So we're very, very mindful to be fiscally responsible. The next 4 slides are some of the performance metrics that you have in the more lengthy document. And I just chose 4. The first 2 focus on timeliness. And so these are all metrics that are set by the State Court Administrator's Office. They're goals that we strive to reach every year. Timeliness is a big part of that because cases need to keep moving so that they can be heard by the judges and so justice can be done so that we can do the work that we need to do. And so the timeliness really reflects on the work of all of our staff. The first one is civil cases, right on point. The second slide is criminal cases. We also have metrics you'll see for traffic, and then all of the subsets of civil. Going on to the third performance metrics, the other metrics that we have are based on service orientation and delivery of service. And I chose to highlight here our probation department. And so we always look at the number of probationers we have, and then the number who are what we call discharge successful as opposed to unsuccessful. So we're always trying to increase the number of people who go through probation successfully because, of course, that has a great bearing on recidivism. And if people can go through and do everything that they need to do, that the judge has ordered in terms of following the law when they're on probation, but also in terms of getting some support and some education, attending classes and therapy, whatever they need to do while they're on probation, we have much better outcomes. So the next slide is a specific subset of probationers. They're people who have been convicted of operating while intoxicated. So this is driving related offenses with the nexus of substance abuse. And I specifically wanted to highlight this because success rates are going up and they coincide with this committee's approval and the commission's approval for us to add 2 additional probation officers several years ago. And so we're extremely pleased that with the addition of those 2 probation officers, all of our probation officers have more capacity to take a deeper dive with their probationers to give them that support that is so necessary. So going on to the next slide, the next 3 are 3 of our significant accomplishments from 2019. And there are a lot of words there. It's also in your written documentation. But what I wanted to highlight with you is that all 3 are anchored in our focus on collaboration. So the first one is indigent defense and the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission requirements, which are statutory requirements. The key thing about this significant accomplishment is that we partnered extremely closely with administration, with Craig Paul from County Council, and with the Sheriff's Department Corrections in our court. So the 3 were the center point and the leaders in getting this rolled out countywide. So then we brought in the other courts that are funded by the other funding units. And it's been extremely successful. The next slide is what we call our waiver program. And this is an opportunity that we as a court offer to defendants to make a fresh start, to either pay off in full or enter into a sustainable payment plan so that they can fulfill their obligations to the court and to the community in a way that is sustainable and that lets them go on and spend their money on something else other than late fees. And so this is something that we collaborated with Kentwood 64B. They're a strong court partner with us. Then the final one is an internal county. It's called the On-Base Work Group. And so last year within our court, we noticed that we were asking IT to support us in various ways on document retention through a program called On-Base, in talking to our partners in probate court, in circuit court, in the clerk's office, in front of the court, the sheriff's department, administration. We realized that all of the different courts and departments that had a nexus with the justice system were requesting similar asks from IT. And so our idea internally was to reach out and take all of that talent and work together for efficiencies. And that has been working really well. It's a really exciting project for us going forward. The next slide is our brief look ahead. And so technology is going to be continuing to be a big focus, both for e-filing when that comes eventually, and just for efficiencies within the court and between courts. We're going to maintain our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, continue to strengthen our team. One thing that I didn't put on the slide, but which is a long-term goal of ours, is to have a sobriety court within our court. We have a couple of challenges. One is that the Supreme Court has identified that our court docket really needs 3 judges, and we have 2, so we're very busy. And the other is what we've been hearing about this morning and throughout, which is the extreme budget crunch right now on all levels. So we are really working to identify ways that we can have either a sobriety court or some of that model within those constraints. The next slide, I'm going to go on to talk about now, because 2019, like I said, seems like a long time ago. So we always anchor in mission. Specifically right now, since February, we have talked about and anchored in physical health and mental health as we fulfill our mission, because we have to have physical health, we have to have mental health as a team in order to go forward. The next slide is a little bit of specifics in the gray about how we have had ongoing court services without any break whatsoever, even for 1 hour. And I want to pause for a minute and thank the commission and thank Wayman Britt for your leadership and for your really your vision in maintaining support for all of the county departments and for our court in particular, because you have allowed our administrative team to keep all of our staff fully engaged, and we need them all going forward to do what we've done. So we split our team into bubbles, and we've rotated so that we've kept separate, so that if, God forbid, something happens and someone tests positive, the whole court doesn't go down. And so it's worked extremely well, and thankfully we've all maintained our health as well. So ongoing operations, and the next slide is also a thanks, because while we have been doing our essential court docket, we've been doing Zoom hearings, broadcasting on YouTube Live, we've been helping the public remotely, we've been doing all of the communication that we need to do. We've also had the opportunity to do a lot of growth internally and also with our partners. We're also very proud that we have had about 2/3 of our staff who've signed up for contact tracing, and so we've been able to support the health department that way. Going forward to the next slide, I just wanted to share with you something really unusual and kind of wonderful that happened, which is that Chief Justice Bridget McCormick of the Michigan Supreme Court personally telephoned our Chief Judge O'Hara to thank him for our court going above and beyond during the pandemic, for thinking outside of the box, and for being a leader. And that just never happens, but it did. And so I wanted to pass that on, because while we felt, personally proud to hear that, that also reflects on the commission, on laymen, on all of the departments that we collaborate with throughout the county. So going on to the next slide. We always reflect on 63rd strong and Kent County strong. And so I want to wrap it up. That's a real quick overview, and really thank you, and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Hillary. Let's see, we have Commissioner Hennessy had a question or comment.
Thank you. I was concerned, you know, you did better define what you meant by success, but are your cases going up? I was looking particularly at the total number of defendants sentenced to probation, and the numbers, you know, remain static. Are you, using more probation? It doesn't reflect that, but, you know, where does that role play? Or are people being still sentenced to jail? I mean, how do you define that, the probation versus jail, and your idea of success, and how does that all fit together?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner. Thank you so much. So this particular metric just looks at when probationers do come to the probation department, what is the result for those people who, so that's a subset. Whether or not someone is ordered to probation is a case-by-case determination by the judge at that time. And so I think that our numbers of folks who are ordered to probation have been static from 2018 to 2019. That's completely case dependent. And so I think I could safely say that our judges are always looking for what particular sentence is going to best fit a particular defendant and allow them to move forward. And as you said, not make the same poor choices that they were convicted of. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat, but your numbers of probationers are remaining very static, where there's, more of a emphasis right now to not put people just in jail.
Right, exactly. And so, I think that goes to what we can measure with our data and what we can control from an administrative side. And so I think that might be a discussion with the judges themselves because they're the ones that do make those decisions. Our overall case numbers are down as well, so I would have to take a dive into percentage of people that are sentenced and how many go to probation. But I will tell you that, yes, statewide and nationwide, there is an emphasis on taking a really deep look into what works and what doesn't work to prevent recidivism. So part of a sentence is the traditional idea is punishment, and we're moving as a nation away from that toward, I wouldn't say a therapeutic view, but a view of what can we do once someone has either admitted their guilt or been found guilty otherwise, what can we do as the next step to bring them forward? And so the successful, unsuccessful is that next step. And, as an administrator, I can't speak for the judges. They would have to have a conversation with you about that. But I do know from watching our public hearings that both judges look to probation as a strong tool to, help not only the individual defendant, but also our community as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Feinstein?
Thank you, Hillary. I appreciate all the work you folks do. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things we do to get positive outcomes at the end of the journey. One observation people make, and for some it's a belief, is that the main factor of success for an individual normally is at the trial. And at the trial, the outcomes are normally based is the quality of lawyer that you have and your ability to pay for a quality lawyer will have more effect on the outcome than anything. Is that a fair observation that people still make about our court systems? And is there, if it is there anything we can do? You know, I know you mentioned judges have some flexibility, but I don't know how much they can. Any thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for that question. You know, I know that is something that we do hear a lot, and there have been a lot of studies about it. I can talk about our county in particular and our court in particular. So one extremely helpful advance is that now we have an attorney for every defendant, no matter the charge, at arraignment. And in our county, we've chosen not to look particularly at whether somebody can pay for a lawyer or not, or get into that. We've decided as a county to give every person an attorney when they're arraigned. And this is an extremely important first step because it's a time where the person not only learns about the charges against them and learns about their rights, but they plead guilty or not guilty. And so with an attorney by their side, people are more apt to slow down and to actually go through all of the steps rather than just plead guilty to get something over with. So that's been very, very helpful. We are very fortunate in our county to have the Office of the Defender. And it's a nonprofit. It's basically a law firm that's a nonprofit, but they're very high quality. So I can't speak to other counties, but we find that that office does an excellent job. We also have private attorneys that are appointed throughout. So in circuit court, it's about 50-50. In our court, mostly Office of the Defender, and they specialize, you know, in the misdemeanor cases for us. So that's very helpful. If you have a lot of money, you can hire more experts and so on. And so that's something that we have looked at with the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission. And I think the admin office probably can speak more to that, but we've worked hand in hand with our grant request for next year for our court and for circuit court, and asked for money to cover experts and investigators and all of those things that people with money can purchase on their own are rolled into our grant request for those people who cannot afford their own attorney, but one is appointed for them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the comments.
Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair Steck. Hillary, I just want to add my thanks to the great work that your court is doing and the willingness of the court to work with the county administration and the Board of Commissioners on these performance objectives, because performance measures, because you don't have to do that, but it's how we roll in Kent County. We try to work together. One of the topics I just want to raise, and it's not specifically about the information that you provided, but you know, you talked about honoring diversity, maintaining focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I wonder about where in this community do we actually look at disparate outcomes in our judicial system? So what actually is happening to people when they go through it? And I'm not sure where we measure that, where we track it, but it seems to me that we need to know whether people of color are being found guilty more often than Caucasians, or are they receiving more punitive sentences? Or those are really important outcomes that it seems to me we need to be looking at on a regular basis. And I don't know I don't know that that's happening. I don't know that we're collecting the right data. You talked about that a little bit to be able to track that. But I guess I want to throw that subject out there and ask for your thoughts about it.
Well, I think that that's a very important and timely consideration. And absolutely, it's something that our court is interested in. Courts across the state and across the country are interested in. And you also absolutely pinpointed that the data reports that we can get can only reflect the data that is put into the system. And so I think probably the first step would be to really contemplate as a community and as a legal community as well. What kind of questions are we asking? What kind of answers are we seeking? And then what individual data can we sort of put into the case management system in order to get those answers? So that's really a non-answer answer, but it's realistic because we don't want to just be guessing, and we don't want to just be using our gut. We really want some solid numbers that would enable us then to use that data and use those reports to consider the next steps going forward.
And if I could just follow up, I want to really affirm that and acknowledge that we need to not say, well, we're not collecting that data, so we can't measure that. But we need to decide what outcomes are important to measure and then collect the data in order to see how we're doing. And this does feel like something that many of us are recognizing we've ignored for far too long, and is a huge, huge issue in our judicial system. It may not be in 63rd because there are a lot of good things going, but we don't know that. And I just want to encourage us to keep thinking about how we can do that better. So thanks a lot for your work and your comments.
Thank you.
Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair Stack. Thank you, Hillary, for your report. And boy, congratulations on being recognized by Chief Justice McCormick. You certainly deserve it. I think that we have a great district court. Having said that, I also, though, feel that it's prudent to point out that I think it speaks volumes to our Chief Justice, who perhaps finally is doing what other Chief Justices should have been doing, and that is recognizing the courts around the state. I do believe that that is, should be, anyway, part of what that position is all about. And I appreciate that Chief Justice McCormick has worked very hard to make herself and therefore the position more recognizable at a state and a local county level even. So congratulations to you, and kudos to her for stepping up and, again, in my opinion, doing what the position should be doing.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners?
No other questions.
All right. I do have one follow-up, Hillary, and thank you so much for your report and all the hard work that goes on over there at our excellent 63rd. You did mention that earlier that the SCAO had last identified that the recommendation was to add one additional judge in your district, and you've managed to handle that caseload notwithstanding that. Is the next level or next year the year that they do those reviews again, or is that this year?
So they did it last year, and there was a recommendation to the legislature to act on that, and so that would have to be a statutory action, and frankly, it's stalled due to the pandemic.
Okay, so it's still in some level of process.
It's still in Lansing, that's right.
Okay. Well, thank you again for your report. We look forward to hearing more later. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to item number 6, which is a performance measurement review report from Matt. Where are you, Matt? There you are. Matt Wolfold, thank you for joining us from our equalization department, and it looks like you've got your share system working.
Okay, do you guys see the county seal? Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. It is my pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present. I'd like to just start by stating that equalization is involved in a variety of activities. Obviously, we do valuation on the property to help track the change in value from year to year. We also are involved in mapping and collaborations with our IT department, the GIS. Of course, we equalize assessments, and we go through quite a bit of analysis on an annual basis to achieve our objectives. And we've recently committed to doing more with analysis. But I am here today as one member of a team, and I want to thank everyone in the department that we work with. With me on the call today actually is Brenda Ritchie, Steve Rickers, and Phil Wall. We represent the management team that works with an excellent group of people, and so I'd just like to thank everyone on the equalization staff for working so hard on a day-to-day basis. I'm also going to discuss that our presentation will demonstrate how we're aligned with the new board priorities, and we'll go through our goals, our metrics, some accomplishments, key collaborations, and take a look ahead. So the main goal that we are tied to is the economic prosperity of the board, maintaining fiscal stability and positioning the county for multi-generational economic and population growth is what our metrics are tied to. Our mission is to provide for a fair system of property assessment and taxation, and to provide professional mapping services for all cities and townships in Kent County. For those of you who've been through the process of creating a mission statement, that is considerably condensed from what it started as in reflecting the breadth of everything that we do. Our mission drives our actions and our goals. Some of our goals well, not some of our goals. Our goals are summarized in three main areas. And these numerical things correspond with the Invisio system. We're Department 5, so that's why you're seeing Department 5, Goal 1, Goal 2, Goal 3. Our first goal is to annually project the property values. We're responsible for tracking the accurate change in values. We do that both on the valuation side, and we also make sure that the millage rates are accurate on an annual basis as well. Our second main goal is to preserve the PLSS, which we do through our remonumentation program and the administering of that. And then our third main goal is to provide those professional tax and mapping services for all the cities and townships and the general public. And as the refining process of clarifying the 5 whys, the reason that we do that is we make sure that all land that is subject to the property tax is taxed once and once only, and is not subjected to double taxation. So I often refer to Kent County being a big puzzle piece, but that's the why that we do what we do here at the county level. So moving on then, I'm going to just hit briefly on several of our key performance metrics tied to our goals. Our first is to conduct the annual assessment audits that need to be done by April 1st. There are a total of 138 property classes in Kent County across 30 assessment jurisdictions. If you'll notice here, there's 30 assessing jurisdictions. We measure a preliminary audit. We have very high compliance in Kent County, where all of our assessment units submit their preliminary roles to us so that we can exercise preventative maintenance, identify any issues before they go to the March Board review, so the assessor has an opportunity to correct them. This one here, I won't pick on the unit, but one unit missed the deadline and we were not able to do that. Fortunately, the roll was in good shape back in 2017, but normally we would see this set at 30 government units that we audit on an annual basis. Our next goal under the main one is in order for us to monitor the change in market conditions, we have to go and analyze the sold properties. Our goal is to conduct appraisals on 100% of the sold commercial and industrial so that we can measure the change in market conditions, otherwise in our parlance called economic condition factors. We're responsible for reviewing, inspecting, and interviewing these property transactions. This year, our field work has been modified. We've had some disruption in our field operations because of COVID-19. What this has amounted to has been, we were essentially grounded our appraisal staff to in-office reviews only for from when COVID shut down to just recently. And so what we've done though is as a matter of timing, all of the sales for the 2021 sales period end in March 31st. So there's really actually only a very short period of time of our market analysis that is overlapping with COVID. So we've been able to keep pretty much on track with regards to our sales analysis. And we are using our technology and our oblique imagery to help augment our field abilities. So we're pretty much on track. We're having to utilize some data that we've already analyzed in the past and carry that forward. But we remain on track, and the sales for review are due to our review appraiser on July 1st. It looks like we're tracking with historical numbers somewhere between 350 and 400 sales, which is what you'll see here on this. Can you guys see my mouse click there? Do you see my mouse navigation when I'm pointing to the screen?
Yes, we can see that.
Thank you. All right. So the next sort of measure that we do with regards to the appraisal division is we set a goal to appraise approximately 1,800 properties a year. These are appraisals that act in the stead of a sales using our professional appraisers. There are classes of property in smaller units where you might not have enough sales to measure the market directly, and that's where our appraisals come in. So each year we set a measure of about 1,800. This year, even though with our COVID field work, vacant land and buildings that we've done in the last few years that we are able to go and look at pictometries, we're still having our field appraisers have still been working remotely from home using pictometry and doing vacant land and sales. So we're doing everything that we possibly can remotely, and then now that we're released, we'll begin the process using appropriate social distancing to go to the field, not engage with the property owner, but try and gather primary photographs from the field and gather the data as well as we possibly can for the coming year. With regard to personal property, we also have a metric here. I've outlined this graph here in red to highlight the fact that personal property is a property class that's in transition. As you may know, personal property is being phased out. Certain categories of personal property in the commercial and industrial sector are being exempt from taxation. Utility property remains, and commercial properties over a certain amount will remain. But the nature of the personal property contribution to the overall ad valorem is going to be diminished as a matter of tax policy at the state. As a result, and as a result of attrition here and reshuffling some priorities in the department, we're going, actually Invisio sort of helped prompt this discussion a little bit as well, because it has a category of discontinued measures. We are no longer going to do individual measurements on deep individual property audits. We are going to move instead to a record verification process where we will be reviewing the assessor's personal property statements, and we'll be doing between 5 and 10%. We'll probably zero in somewhere around 7%. We're going to evaluate the program this year, but instead of doing a couple of hundred deep dives on property taxpayers, we're going to do about 1,500, I would say, record verifications with the local assessors. So it's a shallower look, but it will be wider. It won't be as deep, but it'll be wider in terms of its breadth. And so we're pretty comfortable with the change that we're making in that area. Going on to our goal 2, which is preserving the PLSS. We are the grant administrator for the county remonumentation program. We have a contract with the city of Grand Rapids, who provides county surveyor services for us, and I act as the grant administrator. Each year we repair monuments that have been identified to us as needing monuments, and we this year we have planned 150. Last year we planned 209. We did 209. And we've got 150 planned for this year. Each year we also do several property tax descriptions. As you can see, this year with COVID, we have seen a downturn in the activity. However, we believe that activity is simply delayed. A lot of the development that we get comes in summer and fall, so we will see where that comes. But that's really more of a workflow issue at the local units. The local units, they finish up their assessment roles, and then they kind of take off, and then they deal with their splits in summer and fall is when we usually get the influx of our splits into the office. We do process a number of sales each year, and each year we process anywhere between 25 and 30,000 documents, and we provide professional deed certification analysis in partnership with the treasurers and the Register of Deeds. And we're at 7,500 so far this year. Last year we did 25,000 documents. So some of our significant accomplishments this year, we were one of the first ones to roll out a mobile solution of Pivot Point. Our appraisers are using iPads in the field and using digital means of gathering up their information. That's been very successful. Strategic data support, I really can't say enough about Mike Fortman and the contribution he's made to the county overall. Mike joined equalization staff from the front of the court, and he has worked with the administrator's office extensively, also the health department, courts, sheriffs, on a variety of initiatives. If you guys are familiar with the dashboard, you've seen Mike's work, and Mike has just done a fantastic job, and he'll continue to provide support for all county operations in the years to come. We also have a market research collaboration. Steve Rickers for years has developed and improved upon this. This is where we share market information with Ottawa County and surrounding counties. And with that, we are able to provide market-based information to assessors in over 100 jurisdictions that use that for their Michigan tax tribunal research. It's a really, really good report. We've also in this past year worked with very closely with Register of Deeds and NIT and Tyler Technologies and BSNA software to come up with a workflow that allows us to input deeds electronically directly into our system from an export in Tyler, and we're pleased with that. We also have a few milestones in terms of professional development. This year, Josh Bauman, one of our land-based administration technicians, sought a career growth path and became certified as a certified assessor. And Phil Wall, who's on our call today, achieved the highest level of certification in the state and became a Michigan Master Assessor. And so congratulations to those. Also, Ian Noyes, who's one of our employees in Allegan County, received his entry-level MCAT certification as well. With regards to damage assessment, I just wanted to show one area here, which is a result of a great collaboration with GIS IT. Elliot Lowe from the GIS team worked successfully with our Pivot Point and CAMA vendors and GIS, and he came up with this damage assessment, which is a live dashboard, which we utilized in the recent flood. And what this did is it pre-staged a lot of our flood information and worked very, very well. And so that was a very successful collaboration with IT. Some of our key collaborations, I'm not going to name them all, but we work with a variety of departments and external agencies on a daily basis. We work with, we provide a lot of support and receive a lot of good information from a variety of partners in the community. Look ahead, we will continue to work with strategic data support as we continue to focus on this data. We intend to utilize and maximize the new tools that are available and work closely with GIS. We will also be evaluating our field work, and we're going to employ Qualtrics into our surveys. We've done some work already with the administrator's office to provide us some surveys because of COVID, and because of COVID, we will look to incorporate those into our standard operating procedures. We also will be looking to fully leverage the power of Office 365 and develop shared workflows with our local assessors. We've taken great strides in the last year, and COVID has accelerated a lot of the implementation of remote, as this meeting attests, and that we're looking forward to working closer with the local assessors. We also, the county and the local units, will collaborate in the next several weeks and months on an interlocal agreement to comply with PA 660, which is the assessing reform bill, to address any local units that fall out of substantial compliance with state tax commission guidelines. We will be initiating some conversations on that, and that is something that needs to be done by the end of this year. And in Kent County, I don't anticipate any of our units really falling into this category, but nonetheless, we need to move forward and administer the provisions of that act in order to move forward. Oblique photography, we got new photography this year, and we have worked with Lou Hunt in damage assessment. Lou is bringing a lot of innovation, and I know he wants to expand the number of teams that are available. And this year, for the first time, we worked with Marine Division in the flood, and we'll continue to work with the Marine Division and drone operators and our data providers going forward. So I apologize. I don't know how close I was to the 10 minutes. I apologize if I went over. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I forgot to time you, Matt, so you're okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any questions, comments from the board? I see Commissioner Hennessy has a hand up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that report, Matt. That was really very helpful. Your department is so dependent on computers and data, and so you're a really good first chance for us to ask, how has working at home affected your use of data and the security by moving computers to the home? Has there been any effect? Is everything still intact?
Yeah, I would say that our department has actually handled the transition very well. And there's really two reasons for that. Number one, within our appraisal division, our appraisers were already equipped with mobility. And so for them, it was really just a matter of, do they come into the office or not? We were able to take their existing connection that they had and then sort of incorporate them into their home office environment fairly seamlessly. On the description and mapping side, it was a little more challenging because some of our programs are a little bit more robust. And so we ended up actually having to move some PCs were actually brought home into people's homes during the downturn. But IT has been just simply amazing in terms of their ability to get us up and running. And so they were able to set up those PCs at home just like they were in the office through a little antenna and a secure VPN connection, and really did a fantastic job. So we were sort of 50% already active in that. I've been mobile for years because of our collaborations with other counties, and so I myself am fairly proficient in the mobile world. I would say no, it hasn't not adversely impacted us in terms of the technology side. It has impacted us in our ability to interact with people in the field in a safe manner. And so we have been following the leadership of admin, human resources, and following all of the guidelines. And so we pulled our people right out of the field to make sure that we were complying with all the health department's things. But because of our data and because of our pre-positioning, and especially because we've got a 2020 flight that was literally just completed, we are well positioned, much more well positioned than other counties to still gather relevant data even in a COVID era.
Thank you. If I may follow up, you just referenced your collaborations with other counties. Can you give us a report, a little bit of an update on what you're doing and how that's working?
Yeah, so through the intergovernmental agreement with Allegan County, we provide equalization services, director services to them. Phil Wall, who's on the call today, is our primary person who's positioned down there at this point. Brenda Ritchie provides liaison and spends a lot of time down there as well. And also Steve Rickers, who handles all of our appraisal reviews, is very tightly tied with Allegan as well. So we manage a smaller staff down there. We coordinate through Zoom and through Teams, and that seems to be going very well in terms of doing really the exact same things that we do here in Kent County down in Allegan as well.
If I may follow up one more time, did we used to work with Montcalm County? Are we doing anything with them?
We did. A few years back, when we sat down and started doing sort of an evaluation of what our institutional capacity and our departmental capacity was, we left Montcalm County because we wanted to focus more internally and grow our internal capacity and not have an opportunity cost of diverting the time and attention of the management team into multiple counties. So there was a consolidation and a reprioritization to make sure that we were focusing on Kent County first, not at the expense of other counties. And so we just sort of exited Montcalm, and now all we do is we focus in on Allegan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. Matt, thanks for all your work. I know we've had sidebar conversations in the past, but I really appreciate your passion for data and not just collecting it, but how we use it, how we share it with cities, other counties, the state, but more importantly, on the micro level, is how we're using data between our own departments at the county level to get better results and better information from the data that we're collecting from all over the place. So I appreciate your hard work and your passion to stay up to date on the newest and latest because it's still a growing field. Thank you.
All right, any other commissioner? I don't see any other hands up. Just a quick question, Matt, whether you can comment on this. Do you track at all as to the frequency with which your appraisals are tested at the tax tribunal and the outcomes?
Well, our appraisals go to an annual study that is working with Interaction to set the target for the local assessors. So our appraisals are not ever directly subject to appeal under the Michigan Tax Tribunal. We hold
indirectly they are.
I'm sorry?
Indirectly though?
Indirectly they are, to the extent that if we have, let's say, a less experienced assessor who relies on the information within our appraisals as a guide for their own, we will typically work with them in terms of the Michigan Tax Tribunal. We provide support to them for their individual tribunals. But I guess more succinctly, to answer your question directly, I have not tracked the values that we place on properties and whether or not they were subject of any direct tribunal litigation to get a direct measure on a one-to-one basis like that.
Thank you.
Chair,
Any
if
other
I may
questions?
just say
Yeah.
one other thing too, with regards to the data. Thank you, Stan, for your comments. I want to also point out, I'd be remiss to point out if I didn't acknowledge the administrative team who really led the charge on this. Wayman and all of the management analysts have really embraced data as a strategic asset to support the priorities of the board. And, you know, we represent a very large data set in terms of the property information in the state, and that's led to natural outgrowth and the passion. But all of the innovations that we're making right now are really being really driven and championed through that very, very capable team in the administrator's office as we move forward.
Good, thank you. And thank you to you for all the hard work and for your presentation. And thank you to all your staff as well for all the work that they do. All right, let's move to the next item, which is number 7, County Community Action Advisory Governing Board Appointment. Wayman?
Yes, this is a request to the Board of Commissioners to appoint Christopher Smith to the Kent County Community Action Advisory Governing Board to fill an unexpired term ending December 31, 2020. Midterm vacancy occurred on the Kent County Community Action Advisory Governing Board. Solicitation took place to fill the vacant positions. An interview team consisting of Commissioner Stan Steck, Chair, Stan Ponstein, and Jim Talon reviewed applications and interviewed candidates for the vacancy. The interview team is recommending the appointment of Christopher Smith to fill the remainder of the term.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it. Talon?
Moved by Commissioner Talon, support?
Second by Ponstein.
Second and supported by Commissioner Ponstein. Any comments, questions?
I've got just a couple brief comments. I want to thank the interview team for going through these. Especially want to thank Pam and her staff. Over my 10 years as county commission, I've also not been critical, but concerned that we need to get more people applying for these. We need more diversification. I want to say of the pool that we interviewed, not just for this position, but the non-voting members of the Network 180 board were just outstanding. And I appreciate all the efforts to get more information out to people to apply for these committees. But also on the same token is the emails that the commissioners get. The attachments are now in a JPEG format, which allows us then to pass it along different social media outlets, different to the county. So I appreciate it. I think our pick for this position is an outstanding individual. I think he's going to be an asset for that, and it adds another minority voice to that committee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pile on with the appreciation for having 2 incredibly high quality candidates, which made it a little bit difficult to select someone to move on to this standing committee. But you know, one of the things about Chris that I really appreciated was his kind of historical knowledge of community action and the kind of high level understanding that he came in with and had been paying attention to for a long time. So he's going to be a great asset to that advisory committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, comments? If not, I will join in and acknowledge Pam and your staff and your team for helping out and identifying candidates. I know we interviewed 2, but frankly, we had a number more than 2 applications, and there were qualified folks even in the group of candidates that we did not interview. So it was a pleasingly challenging task to go through that process. So, all right, any other comments? If not, we'll do this by roll call. Pam, if you'll call the roll.
Commissioner Hennessy,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Melton, Commissioner Ponstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Teal, Commissioner Skaggs,
Yes.
Commissioner Talon,
Yes.
Commissioner Vonk,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Good. So let's move on to item number 8 from the Administrator's Office. Wayman?
Yes, this is a request to the board to approve the program agreement between the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service and the Kent County for conservation easements, and authorize board chair or designee to sign all related documents. In April 2020, the county applied to the U.S. Department of Agriculture for matching funds for purchasing conservation easements through the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, agricultural land easements. And during previous application cycles, applicants signed contracts for each award they received. U.S. Department of Agriculture updated processes for 2020 and now requires ACEP ALE applicants to enter into a program agreement before receiving funding awards. Applicants will continue to receive contracts for each application award. This new application process allows for applicants to be submitted on a rolling basis as funds become available. There is no cost associated with entering into this agreement. Term of the agreement is from September 20th, September 2020 through September 30th, 2025. If the program agreement is not approved, the county will no longer be eligible to receive the federal matching for the purchase of conservation easements. The current practice of review and approval of the individual farmer grant applicants and easements will continue unchanged. Corporate Counsel will review the agreements prior to signature.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Ponstein.
Support by Hennessy.
Support.
I think I had Commissioner Ponstein moving and Commissioner Hennessy supporting. Are there comments or questions?
Chair, could we get a bit of an overview of this? This is something that I'm not familiar with. Perhaps others are, but.
Matt on the call? Yes.
Wayman or someone else?
Yeah, Matt, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Becky Channing?
Okay.
Can you take that question, Matt Channing? It was our.
Yeah, confirming. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So sorry, can you please repeat the question for me? Commissioner Talon?
Sure. Matt, I wasn't sure where this is being administered within the county, and I'm not familiar with the program, how new it is. So a little overview is what I was looking for.
Oh, certainly. So the ACLE program, ACP-ALE program has been the predominant funding stream for the conservation easements within the program. So the USDA NRCS program is quite old. We've been doing it for over a decade on a contract by contract basis for each parcel application. They finally decided they wanted to update their procedures. They wanted to have agreements in place so that you wouldn't have to resubmit the same signatures and same applicant information for each application that you end up doing over a 3 to 5 year period. So they wanted to standardize it a bit more and save paperwork on their end, save paperwork on our end. So it's been traditionally administered either through MSU Extension or through contractor. And now with me here in the administrator's office, we will be taking this that Kent County backleg work in-house, but still working with USDA and NRCS. They will be our still predominant federal partner in this. So it's not, from their end, it's not much more work for them. We still get the contracts, so obviously there's still a component for the Board of Commissioners to come in here and have a voice and say about where we're preserving and whether or not we want to accept these funds.
Does that answer your question?
If I could just follow up,
Yes.
wasn't sure whether the 10 years that you referred to, Matt, was that the program's been in existence for 10 years or whether the county has been participating for 10 years.
Good question. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. The NFS program has been around for a long time and operated under slightly different names historically. We've only been into it since we've had the ordinance, and even then it took some years to get going. So, but we have been submitting contracts, yes, historically, going back to 2010, I believe, was our first cycle of accepting awards.
When you say the ordinance, you mean the Farmland Preservation Ordinance?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have anything else, Commissioner Talon? No, you went mute. So I'll go to Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair Stack. As most of you know, I generally, with the general opposition to the existing structure of the PDR program, I vote against PDR items. This one, however, it just makes the process more efficient, and while the process continues to exist, being more efficient is a good thing. I'll be voting yes.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? Nothing else I see, so go ahead and call the roll. Yeah.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Commissioner Melton. Commissioner Ponstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Teal. Commissioner Teal.
Yes.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Yes.
Commissioner Talon.
Yes.
Commissioner Vonk.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
That motion passes.
All right, let's move to item number 9, miscellaneous. Does any commissioner have miscellaneous?
Commissioner Ponstein.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. Not so much a question, but just some comments, and maybe Wayman and his staff can follow up on this. In the news recently, not just on the newspaper, print, everything, something that seems to be a theme that's coming out of the COVID at this stage is the word underlying conditions and the effect that has on the outcomes of people that come down with COVID-19. And I've been on some of the calls where I hear even the number of 40% of Americans have underlying health conditions. So, I mean, during a crisis and the sense of urgency of that we have to deal with COVID-19 face value right now, that's great. But at the end of the day, this virus may mutate to a different type. It may go away like MERS or SARS, or it could come back worse than it is. But in the meantime, the importance of the issue is that we still have 40% of people in this community that have underlying conditions. And a lot of times, your positive outcomes will not be as great if you have those underlying conditions. And more often than not, it's the poor, the zip code you live in, the color of your skin that will play a part in some of those underlying conditions. You know, you can have affordable housing, but if it's not quality, that can be an outcome negative. Access to health, your diet, your lifestyle, access to care, your access to quality food and healthy foods. I think maybe down the road, we've got to have a bigger issue of just the people that live in this county. And if it is 40% have those underlying conditions, that's got to be addressed. And I just want to bring that up. No one's got to respond to it, but maybe start getting information out. And if that's even on our radar of something that we want to discuss in the future. The other thing, working as an essential worker, wearing a mask 9 hours a day, no, it's not fun. But we're constantly hearing contradictory statements across all boards of the media of the effectiveness of masks. I was wondering if the health department can get information to us. It's not so much wearing the mask, but most people don't know how to correctly wear that mask. And, you know, in my day-to-day work, you know, the masks are now considered a bandana that's open below the nose, or somehow now that they've got a plexiglass glass in front of their face that, you know, they can't spread the germs as safe. So, and cloth masks are obviously not as good as the N95. So if we can just get some information to pass out to the public, because I think that is one area that there's just an incredible amount of misinformation, not so much the effectiveness, but just the common sense on how to wear a mask effectively. Having it just over your mouth and then coming up to me and sneezing isn't doing me any good. So I just wanted to throw that out. I don't need any comments. I know it's been a long meeting, but if we can just get maybe if that's going to be on our radar in the future, or just pass out information that we can then pass out to the public. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. And we'll take that up, I guess, outside the meeting and respond. Commissioner Falk, did you have something?
Yes, thank you, Chair Steck. Question for yourself and for Wayman. In the lieu of seeing so many monuments desecrated and destroyed around the country, I wonder if we have any ordinance in place above and beyond our local ordinances to protect these monuments. In lieu of the Sequia project, I call it, with honoring local officials and local businessmen, I'd hate to see these monuments destroyed and desecrated for apparently no reason. We have a small monument in Plainfield Township. It's a humorous one. Mario Logie said this would not happen until pigs fly. And there's a monument of flying pigs in Plainfield Township. And some of these monuments, even though we may have questions about them, I've been on the Trail of Tears. I'd hate to see those signs pulled down because of that terrible story in our history. It's a scar in American history, but something that we can appreciate as we ride those roads or go to the Little Bighorn. I was there. I read the documents. I read the last minute stories of these heroes on both sides. And it's a sad story, but it's a scar in American history, but it's something to remember and know what took place there. And we come out of scars. Our own lives have tons of scars to get where we are today. I've got a scar in the face for a dog bite. I'm crippled because of a bad driving by a motorist. You know, we're here because of scars. We got scars in our families, and if they're not that great, let's get over it. But I think looking at our monuments and whatnot and honoring these monuments, I don't think they can just be disgraced at the will of some crowd going down the street.
I don't know, Commissioner, the answer to your question specifically, if it is whether or not the county has an ordinance that addresses any monuments. I frankly doubt it, but maybe if Linda's online.
I think we only have 7 ordinances in county ordinances, but in lieu of the fact that we are spending thousands of dollars in a new Gerald R. Ford monument out at the airport, I'd hate to see this money go to waste because some mob decides to take it out.
Commissioner Bonk, this is Linda Howell. We don't have a specific county ordinance on that. It would fall under the state criminal statutes on destruction of property. So there's nothing specific in the county ordinance books on that.
Okay, thank you.
It is a prosecutable offense under the state criminal statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
I'd like to hear how our back to work process is going. Just a little bit of an update on that. We started June 15th.
That'd be a
A lot
question
of
for
planning went
Wayman.
into that, Commissioner Hennessy, and we're very fortunate. Every department goes through a series of questions before we start work each day. Their temperatures are checked. They're fed into the Back to Work program site along with all the other employers that are participating. Signage is up. I've not heard any complaints. We've not had a full start for all departments. So we are being very careful flexing people back in. So that's helped a lot. And we're just very mindful of distancing. Masks are being worn when we're interacting, less than 6 feet. And I've not heard any complaints from any departments. I think things are going well here at the county, as well as at the city next door. They've taken the same approaches that we've taken in regards to signage and distancing and so forth. So we're in pretty good shape right now. And there hasn't been anyone showing up at work that I'm aware of that's COVID, knock on wood, COVID tested at this point. We've been at it for, what is it now? 1 week, week and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Hennessy?
It's a good report. Thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else? If not, I have just a couple of items. First, just to follow up on some comments that Commissioner Ponstein had made earlier with respect to the interview team looking at Network 180 candidates. Just to clarify, Network 180 is an authority that has a unique structure that calls for the appointment of non-voting members. Historically, this commission and this committee has not addressed or been involved in that process because of the fact that Commissioner Ponstein, Commissioner Talon, and I all sit on the Network Committee board. We thought it would be useful for us to participate in that matter. We did go through a very deep and qualified set of candidates and did make a determination after interviews to recommend 3 candidates for non-voting positions. But those do not come back to this committee because of the nature of that. It goes back to the board at Network 180 for their follow-up. So if you have more questions about that, please feel free to reach out to myself or Commissioner Ponstein or Commissioner Talon. We can fill you in more, but that's what transpired with that process. The second thing is just, again, to thank you for your patience. Obviously, these meetings are now going a little bit longer. We're back up and operating, and our staff is re-engaging on a local basis and able to put more energy into catching up on these PM reviews. So we're doing 2 of them today. We did 2 of them today, and we'll probably be doubling up for the foreseeable future. So that's why these things are going a little bit longer, but I appreciate your patience and sticking with it, and thank you for your efforts. So with that, unless there is anything else, we will stand adjourned.